There's a man who gets invited to the party, shows up, says all the right things, and leaves 40 minutes later feeling like he committed a small crime against himself. Most people call that antisocial. Arrogant, even. Like he thinks he's above it. He isn't. What you're watching isn't contempt for people. It's a refusal, a deep, almost physical refusal to perform a version of himself he doesn't believe in. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what the INTJ is protecting when he refuses to be normal, what it costs him on the nights he gives in, and why that refusal is the single most misread thing about him. This man exists in every generation, in every country, in every family. He's the kid who asked the teacher why and got sent to the hallway for it. He's the employee who reads the company handbook and quietly notices which rules are just theater. He's the friend who goes silent in a group of 8 and comes fully alive one-on-one. He isn't rare because he's special. He's rare because he's roughly 2% of the population. The INTJ woman is closer to 0.5%. You can spot him by what he doesn't do. He doesn't fill silence. He doesn't laugh at things he doesn't find funny. He doesn't pretend to agree just to keep a conversation smooth. And people notice. Not the honesty, the absence of the performance they expected. Carl Jung, who built the entire framework these personality types come from, had a name for the process of becoming who you actually are underneath what you were trained to be. He called it individuation. He believed that failing to do it was the source of most human misery. The INTJ is a man who started that process early, whether he wanted to or not. We're going to go through 7 reasons he refuses normalcy, and they get heavier as we go. The last 2 aren't really about personality at all. They're about what it does to a person to spend a life being slightly wrong on purpose. Let's start with the one that surprises almost everyone. Number 1. He isn't rebelling. He's just not running the program. Rebellion needs an audience. It's a performance aimed at the very thing it claims to reject. He isn't doing that. Jung called this man's dominant mental function introverted intuition. In plain English, his mind builds its own private model of how the world works, and then he lives out of that model instead of the one he was handed. Everyone else checks the room to find out what's true. He checks the model. When the room and the model disagree, the room loses. Every single time. That isn't defiance. That's just where his sense of reality lives. So when he declines the tradition, skips the milestone, opts out of the ritual everyone else finds meaningful, he isn't making a statement about you. He's following a map you can't see. And he assumed, wrongly, that you'd understand. But an internal map is only half of it. What matters is what he does with it. That's where the refusal grows teeth. Number 2. He tests everything. And most of normal fails. Isabel Briggs Myers, who turned Jung's theory into the system we use today, described the INTJ's second function as extroverted thinking. It's a relentless drive to measure the outside world against one question. Does this actually work? Not is it popular? Not is it how it's always been done? Does it work? Most social norms cannot survive that question. Small talk doesn't work. It transmits almost nothing. Networking events don't work. Half of what we call professional culture doesn't work, and everyone quietly knows it. So he stops doing them, not out of superiority, out of the same instinct that makes you stop pressing a button that was never wired to anything. And here's the part that stings. He's usually right, which is exactly why it's uncomfortable to be around him. Nobody enjoys being shown the wiring. Now here's where it gets more complicated, because this is the part most people, including the INTJ himself, don't fully understand. Number 3. He's not bad at being normal, he's frighteningly good at it. This is the twist nobody expects. The sociologist Erving Goffman described social life as theater. Every one of us has a front stage where we perform for others and a backstage where we drop the act. Everyone has both. What makes the INTJ different is the size of the gap between them. He can study a room, reverse engineer the expected behavior, and run it almost perfectly. Correct expression, correct timing, correct amount of enthusiasm. He can pass as normal for an entire evening. He can pass for years. Watch him at a work function sometime. He'll ask the follow-up question. He'll hold the eye contact for the socially correct duration. He'll laugh a quarter second after the room does because he's tracking the room, not the joke. It's a flawless imitation of a man enjoying himself. And it runs on conscious effort the entire time, the way you drive a car in a country where the wheel is on the wrong side. Which means when he refuses, it was never inability, it was a decision. And that changes what the refusal is. It isn't a wall he can't climb, it's a door he keeps choosing not to walk through. And this next one, almost everyone who loves an INTJ gets it completely wrong. Number 4, his exit gets read as a verdict on you. When he opts out, people don't experience it as a choice he made about himself, they experience it as a judgment about them. The psychologist Lee Ross named this the fundamental attribution error. It's our habit of explaining other people's behavior by their character while explaining our own by our circumstances. When you skip the party, you were tired. When he skips the party, he thinks he's better than everyone. Same behavior, 2 completely different stories. And only one of them ever gets extended to him. So the man who left early because the performance cost him something you'll never see gets labeled cold, superior, difficult. And the cruelest part is that he rarely defends himself. Because explaining it would require the exact performance he was trying to avoid. He'd rather be misread than be fake. Most people never find out that's the trade he's making. If you're the kind of person who actually thinks about the people in your life, not just what they do, but what it's costing them underneath, and you're still here, that tells me something about you. It would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week. Real psychology explained in a way that actually makes sense for real people. Now, here's the part that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. And it matters more than everything before it. Number 5, every successful performance gets billed to an account he doesn't check. Carl Rogers, the founder of humanistic psychology, called this incongruence. It's the gap between who you actually are and who you're presenting. Rogers found that when that gap stays open long enough, people don't just get tired. They start losing contact with their own signal. They can't tell what they want anymore, only what's expected. Anxiety and depression, in his model, aren't random events. They're the sound a self makes when it's been overwritten for too long. The INTJ is unusually vulnerable here, and it's precisely because he's so good at the performance. The people who are bad at conforming get found out early. Someone notices. He doesn't get that. He could run the false version for a decade before anything visibly breaks. And when it breaks, it doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like a man who suddenly walks away from a job, a city, a relationship, and can't fully explain why. Here's how you catch it early, if you love one of these men. Watch what happens after the social event, not during it. During it, he's fine, he's running the program. It's the silence in the car on the way home that tells you the truth. Not sulking, recalibrating. He's checking to see how much of himself is still there. But this is the root underneath all of it. Number 6, he didn't decide this as an adult. That decision was made in a much smaller body. The pediatrician and psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott described 2 selves that form in childhood. The true self, spontaneous, real, the part that feels alive, and the false self, a compliant mask a child builds when the environment doesn't have room for who he actually is. Winnicott's insight was that the false self isn't a flaw, it's protection. He gets built by children who learned that being genuine was expensive. Most INTJs learn that lesson early. The questions that weren't welcome, the intensity that made adults uncomfortable, the honesty that got punished for being honest. He built the mask, like everyone else does. The difference is he never mistook it for himself. He knows exactly where the mask ends and he begins. And that's why he can take it off, and why he'd rather lose the room than lose the line between the two. Which brings us to the last one, and honestly, the most important. Number 7. The refusal isn't the strength. What he does with it is, Jung's word for the goal of a human life was individuation, becoming the person you actually are, rather than the composite of everything you were trained to be. But Jung was clear about something people miss. Individuation isn't rejecting the world. That's just rebellion again, wearing a smarter coat. The integrated man can move through the world's rituals without being erased by them. He chooses when to perform. He knows he's performing. And he never confuses it with who he is. That's the mature INTJ. Not the one who refuses everything that's a younger, angrier version, still ruled by what he's against. The real one conforms on purpose, in the places where it's worth it. For the people who earned it, and he drops the entire apparatus the second he's with someone who doesn't need it. You can watch the shift happen in real time. He'll go to his sister's wedding and give the toast, warmly, correctly, because he decided the day belongs to her and not to his principles. That's not surrender. Surrender is when the mask wears you. This is a man picking it up, using it deliberately for 1 hour, and setting it back down. The mask became a tool. It stopped being a cage. He isn't refusing normalcy. He's refusing to pay for it with himself. So the next time you see a man leave the party early, the one who said all the right things and still looked like he was somewhere else, you know what you're actually looking at. You're not looking at contempt. You're looking at someone running a map he built himself because the one he was handed didn't survive his own inspection. Someone who can be normal, flawlessly, and has already done the math on what it costs. Someone who learned young that being genuine had a price and decided quietly, permanently to pay it anyway. He isn't difficult. He's undiluted. And the people who stop asking him to perform are the only ones who ever get to meet him. If you want to go deeper on what actually happens inside the INTJ mind when nobody is watching, I put together a video on that exact thing. It's right here when you're ready.